This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
And there it is. Okay, so it is 6 o'clock with a quorum present. I am calling the meeting to order. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so here we go. We have the minutes in our folder. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns from the January 8th minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Public comment.
I
Okay.
could bring my husband in here and he could say a few
Yeah,
words.
I could bring my kid. I could bring my class of 2020 kid in here. She could. Okay, circulation of warrants. Those have been coming electronically. Did anybody have anything they wanted to ask while we're here? Okay. I have no announcements or correspondence. John did not share anything with me. Vito, do you have anything that would fall in that category?
No, nothing that really didn't come in the superintendent's report.
Okay. Good. Eliza, we've got your principal's report in the folder. Is there anything you want to highlight for us?
Bunch of staffing changes that are in there. I thought it was pretty neat that Mr. Hodgson's sixth grade class is making the commemorative stamps to represent the 250th anniversary of Southampton.
Yeah,
They
that
were
was really cool.
wonderful. He did a really nice video. I think that's going to be uploaded to the town website at some point, or the 250th website at some point. So I thought that was really, really cool. And then we had a really great professional development day on January 21st, which was part of the two Teach Global inclusion things that we've been doing. We bought this book called Practical Strategies for Managing a Diverse Classroom in K through 6, and we did sort of like a jigsaw. So each teachers were randomly selected by a picker online, and paras were included as well. And they each read a chapter, and there's a challenge also. So there's these 10 chapters and 10 challenges. They read them, and then they knew that they had to present to the rest of the faculty what the highlights from the chapter or the challenge or what they thought was great. And they did such a wonderful job. We had people doing skits and we had people doing slideshows, and we just had, stand and deliver, but it was really good. It was nice that teachers gave me feedback afterwards to say that they loved how they got to work with colleagues that they don't usually see, like say a preschool teacher and a sixth grade teacher or special ed and ELL. So it was a really great day, and we're proud of the work that we're doing. So that's
Great.
really it. We did lose a few school choice kiddos because a family that was 3 students who were school of choice moved into town, built a house, and the house was finally ready. So they're here now, and we took them off of the school choice side and put them on the regular side. So there was some movement there, but our enrollment's at 482.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Eliza?
I have a question on the report, but I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the music program at Norris. So we had our school council meeting today at the high school, and one of the things that came up was the lack of a pipeline into our high school band.
Yep. So we have music classes where every student funnels through the music class here. But for instrumental music, we have lessons after school. That's what we have. We don't, I can't remember. I feel like it's the same thing that we had in the past. She does do a couple concerts with the students that take the musical program. So one is the Arts in the Park in the spring, and one is an after-school program for parents in the spring of the students who are playing the musical instruments.
Okay.
Yeah, my daughter does it. Our second year starts in 5th grade. They can take an instrument. So she's done the clarinet. This will be her second year doing the clarinet.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of kids from Bergie because they have a strong music program, but Southampton being the biggest school, the biggest potential feeder.
I'd love to hear about what Bergie's doing, so maybe I'll reach out to Stacy.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Someone is ringing the door. I need to just go see who that is. Sorry.
Okay. Vito, we also had your report in the folder. Is there anything in particular that you want to point out that you think is important for us to talk about?
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing there was a lot of concern, a lot of anxiety that was raised by some of the executive orders that were made by the new administration. And the reason I say it is because it came to me from teachers and counselors at the high school and elementary level. And there were families that were worried about their status, worried about their students, worried about their welcome in our schools based on the messaging that they were hearing in social media, on the TV, etc. So I sent out a message to all stakeholders, teachers, students at the high school level, and parents, just reassuring them that Massachusetts has guidance around inclusion of all students and a focus on ensuring that we are following the laws of Massachusetts, B, adhering to the laws that are coming down to us from the federal level, but ensuring that our students are safe and that despite status, every student is welcome, and we are going to make sure that that we meet the needs of all of our students. So I wanted to speak to that because I did put it in the principal's report, excuse me, and I did send out a talking points last Friday. And part of that was in response to what I heard from stakeholders in the buildings and from students who were raising concerns to their counselors and teachers, and parents who had reached out to principals and counselors.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Hold on. I gotta get back to. All right. John, did anyone have any questions for Vito?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I don't have a chair's report because I'm not actually the chair, and the chair didn't give me one. So we'll skip that. However, we do have our Hampshire Regional School Committee rep with us. Margaret, what's going on up there?
Well, we're deep in the throes of budget season, and so that's been a primary point of discussion and agreement and disagreement, and we're just kind of going through the process. So we had our budget hearing on Monday with representatives from various FinComs and select boards, and the committee voted to push the budget through. We have a pretty good idea of expenses. We're still waiting for some more information to get a full view of our revenue sources and what school committee might be able to add to the budget. But that's kind of where we are. And so our next meeting is in April, and then that's when we have to finalize. No, March, sorry.
March,
I'm skipping ahead. March, and that's when we'll be finalizing some things.
Any questions for Margaret? Okay. Oh, PTO next. That's me. So they're working on gearing up for their spring fundraisers. One thing I do want to mention is they do have a fundraiser that they do. It's they have a Thunderbirds night, and they've been selling tickets to that. That is going to be on March 15th at 7:05 versus the Syracuse Crunch. They also signed up to, and I don't, Chuck a Puck. Maybe people know what that is. I do not, because I'm not a hockey person, but they're also signed up to handle some of that. So I think that's will also generate revenue for them at the game. So the tickets are on sale still. So if people are interested, I guess reach out to Norris PTO. I'm not sure. Eliza, do you know who they should talk to? Is there a link somewhere on the school website or anything?
We have a bunch of QR codes that I can send out if you're interested.
Okay.
There's one in the main office. I can't even think of who to reach out to. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But I just wanted to put it out there for, anyone who's listening that, if you're interested in going to a hockey game and helping PTO raise some money, March 15th.
Email me and I'll give you the information.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, school council, Margaret, again.
Yeah, so we did not have our meeting this week, but we are continuing to work on this school improvement plan, and Eliza's doing some more work on that on her end, and will come back to us the next time we meet with some, with some drafts for us to look at the actual language and make sure we're incorporating everything, all the good things that we're doing at Norris.
March 11th is our next meeting. Yep.
All right, so Dylan is our CES person and he's not here. I think, did you guys see the letter from Todd Gazda about CES is cutting back on some of their programming? Looks like it's the licensure program that they're
Right.
that they're going to sunset that soon. So yes, doing some reorganizing there, I guess. All right, and so that's really all I know about the CES. And unless Vito, you have anything you want to say about it, but we
No,
can move on.
and I did in my my superintendent's report that was shared. There is the letter that Todd Gazda sent, and that's exactly what you said, Kim. The licensure program that had done some really pretty robust work, unfortunately, was one of the ones that was going to be cut back, and they had to let go of some positions. But they're going to, focus on those areas where they can be most effective with respect to support and resources for professional development.
I do not have a select board update from John, so we'll skip that. Which brings us to John Scaparrotti. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Marty, how are you?
I will try to be brief. In that I know today is the superintendent's birthday, but I will be sure to cover everything.
Happy birthday.
All right. So inside the drive is the financial activity to address the open items. And, that's that 10-page document. And I'm just going to highlight a couple. Some you've probably already heard about since the last meeting, because we did have an interim session with a few people. And it's number 12 on page 3. It says review and resolution of the central office allocation to municipal schools. And the latest forensic activity showed that the majority of the central office expenses in FY24 have not been invoiced to the 3 municipal schools, nor paid by them. Though, Kim's going to share that. Though the expenses to vendors and to employees have all been paid. These were amounts that were included in the FY24 budget for central office. So they've already been appropriated by, approved by the school committee, appropriated by the town. It's just they were never invoiced. And when we were doing our forensic work, going through things with a fine-tooth comb, we identified that. And so we need to move forward with a solution. And I've been in touch with the 3 municipalities, accountants, and select board members, and they are aware of it, and we are working to come up with a resolution. What we believe the resolution for Southampton is going to be is to take the amount that had been budgeted and subtract from it those invoices that had been allocated out to Southampton already. In June, there were about 70-something thousand worth of invoices that had been allocated. And so we're going to subtract that from the amount of the budget, and that would be the amount left over. And that, Kim, if you want to bring it up and share it, that would be in the drive under, it's actually in the same spreadsheet as the accounting contract. Yeah. So if we skip down past the accounting contract at the moment, and I don't know if you can get that any bigger, Kim, you will see the central office cost adjustment. And the central office cost adjustment is, and then just down a little bit. Perfect. Thank you. Can everybody see that? So in FY20, it says FY25. It really should say in FY24, the budget was $492,001. That would have been paid that would have been in the budget for Southampton and has already been appropriated. The invoices that have already been allocated and paid by Southampton amount to the 76,241, and that remains, that leaves $415,760 to be invoiced. We would invoice it this year in 25, but due to Mass General Law, you're not able to pay that in this year because it's a prior year bill, so it would have to go on a special or an annual town meeting warrant as a prior year bill. And that 415,760 represents, and the full amount also represents the amount before any forensic costs. I think that the previous business administrator had come to the ADC to request additional funding, and most of that funding, as I understand it, we're looking for the minutes to verify specifically, but as I understand it, that funding was taken out of grants, so it wouldn't be included in this amount. This would just be the amount prior to the forensic expenses in 24. So that's, any questions on that?
So this money should be sitting in an account somewhere in Southampton waiting to be paid out?
That's correct. You should be, if all you had was the school budget, you would be under your budget by this amount, the 415,760. I have to work with Bradley to validate that, but because your budget doesn't just include the school, it includes municipal expenses as well. I don't know that he has the 415,000 under budget available somewhere. That's what we are working on understanding. But yes, if we're just looking at the school, there should be that money left aside. Now, it may or may not have been encumbered. I don't know. In Westhampton, it was encumbered, and I don't know that it was in Southampton. Typically, to encumber something, you would had to have contacted, the central office would had to have contacted Southampton, each municipality, and said, "Oh, don't forget, we have this invoice and we haven't sent it to you yet." Or if you were wildly under budget, whoever was monitoring that at the town level might have called and said, "What's going on here?" But I think the reality is that there were so many moving pieces that year that it wasn't immediately obvious.
Okay, so any questions on that part for Dawn? Okay, all right.
And so what we've done with Vito, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think that when we've presented this to the other municipalities, they have just, I don't know if they took a vote or they didn't take a vote. They just understood that this was coming, and yes, they will be aware that we're moving this to the town administrator and to the select board for placement on the next warrant.
Yeah, and that's where the action has to happen, and any votes made. But for us, our purposes, as Dawn has said from the start, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're going to share. And so we're being transparent and sharing everything as soon as we know. There's a lag because of the school committee meetings. So I think Westhampton heard first or second. So the bottom line is we're trying to keep everybody apprised of what's going on, and the action has to happen at the municipal level.
Okay, thank you.
And then on number 13 on the issues document, which is on page 4, just mentioning that we've been in touch with the various accountants at all of the schools, and the municipal accountants specifically, in order to reconcile the 24 actuals as reported on the central office financial platform ledger to the municipal accounting ledgers, to make sure that we have the same numbers, not only for what we just talked about, but for all expenditures. And that typically should be happening on a quarterly basis. I don't believe it happened in 2024, so we've got the whole year to reconcile, but moving forward, we will be doing this reconciliation on a more timely basis, so it isn't such a burden on anyone.
Okay.
And then on the good news side, on page 5 in the grant reconciliations, the work that our grant consultant has been doing is progressing very well, and the final reports for Williamsburg, and there were 10 of them, have been filed. 7 of the 10 have money that needs to be returned because not all of the grants were utilized. We don't want to be in that position in the future, but there was money left on the table in Williamsburg, and we will, try to avoid that for the future. Then in Chesterfield has come along, and right now they're working in Southampton. He's working in Southampton, and we're making some good progress there. So that's very encouraging. So overall, we are moving forward with our plan, and what we'll say is on page 22, page 6, on number 22. We, as you remember, we were going to file for an extension, which we did with DESE, for our FY24 end of year report. They gave us an extension until February 1. We did not meet that date, and we will not be able to meet that date until the 24 reconciliations are done, until the 24, this big pot that we just identified that we didn't know existed in terms of all of these invoices that hadn't been allocated to the municipalities. And every time we discover something, it takes us off our main objectives. So that is a concern. We did report it to DESE. They understood why we couldn't do it. Would you say that this month in our report, Vito, they were much more gracious than last month?
I would say that's true, and part of the reason is that we started receiving some consulting support from DOR, the Department of I'm sorry, not DOR. I apologize. The Regional Association, and Steve Hemmen gave us some advice and helped us complete some reports that DESE needs to do some predictions for 26. So it kind of satisfied some of their need with the end of year reports, though not all of the need. And that kind of brings us to the new business. I don't know if there's anything else, Dawn, you want to talk about there, or if there's any questions that you have for us about these things. But we are making progress. We are gaining traction. And unfortunately, we keep finding these things that we have to address, and it does frustrate things and disconcert us somewhat, but we're just going to keep plugging on and making progress the best we can.
Now, I think the one reason that they extended additional grace to us was, number one, as Vito mentioned, we completed one of the schedules of the end of year report, which was all about transportation. And we did so based on a negotiated conversation between this volunteer who works for the Mass Association for Regional Schools, and he advised us on something. He actually called Jay Sullivan himself and said, I think if you got this could be done. And so we did that, and that was basically just reporting our regional transportation expenses and our municipal transportation expenses just for the schools, just because he has to go to the legislature with some of that information. So that took some of the heat off there. And also, in the last conversation we had with him, he did suggest that we look for, and that the superintendent would be practical and come up with some additional support. So what we did look at a scope of service to identify what additional support we could get externally, and we focused on FY24. And so we have approached an accounting firm, some of these other consultants who have helped, like Mass Munifin and others. They're very good. They just don't have any accountants on their staff, and our issues are accounting issues. And so we have asked them if they would work with us to resolve 24 so that we can get our E&D information in, so that we can get the end of the year reports done. So we can really, it's not so much they would do the end of year reports, they would get all of our information into the general ledger so that we could come up with balances that will help us in our 26 budgeting. But we have to roll forward balances from 23, 24, and 25, and they will help to do that. They will also get us in a position that we can file our E&D, our goal, and what we would write in the contract if all the school committees approve it. We have gone to 3 school committees so far, and they've each approved it. We're coming to you tonight in the new business section, but I'm just explaining how this document relates to that. And the contract would be written such that the payments between now and the end of the year would be $50,000, the end of the fiscal year, and it would be allocated based on the central office allocation methodology as identified in this document on the screen. And now I said 3, so Hampshire Regional, CG has approved it, Westhampton approved it. Yeah, Westhampton. So we're looking for tonight for a vote from the school committee in Southampton, and next week we'll be approaching Williamsburg. One of the things that will be in the contract is that the payment and the scope of service is conditional upon providing the information that we need by the beginning of March, so we can send it off to the Department of Revenue by their deadline, which I think is the 10th. Beyond the 10th of March, if you don't have the information in, they can withhold your state aid. And so while we don't know that they would do that because they know we're moving towards getting everything resolved, we don't want to further complicate things with our revenues. So that is our next move, and we did talk to the with DESE about the fact that we were going to be approaching the school committee to move forward with this, and that provided them some level of comfort because they know what it's going to take in order to get this information done, and they realize that even with everybody we have here, we just don't have the resources to bring it in by the March date.
So go ahead, Vito.
Sorry, Kim.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna reinforce the message that we've been putting out there is that we're trying to identify the issues and then bring resources and expand our capacity to this forensic work so that we can get out of the hole that we're in. And that's really, the summary of what Dawn just said. The funding source that we're looking to use would be rural aid, which is one of those allocations that we know that each of the districts, or schools has received, and that there's the resources available to make it work.
So you confirmed that money is still available in our rural aid?
Correct.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry to say that. Until we have the balances, we won't be able to confirm it. We know that you received an allocation in rural aid.
well, but Dawn, just to be clear,
Yes.
we're talking different years, right? So we
Yes.
know that 24, there was an allocation of rural aid. We don't know the balance of that. We
That's
do
right.
know that we got allocated a new round of in 25. So that hasn't been hit yet. So we're talking a couple different years of rural aid. So we're both right. 25 hasn't been touched yet. 24 has been. We just don't know to what extent and what balance would be remaining to roll over. That's part of the work that the accountants are going to do.
But do we know that we have at least $17,190?
Yes. I was going to say the
Absolutely.
17,190 is a small enough number so that we would be able to identify that. Yes, from 24.
All right. So since we're on this, we might as well stay on our list. Is there some reason we have to talk about the bus contract before we talk about this or no?
No.
Okay, why don't we just stick with this then? Margaret or Jen, do you have any questions about this?
No, I don't.
This is just to help pick up the slack and fill holes, correct?
That's correct. Exactly.
So what you need from us then is a move to approve up to $17,190 out of rural aid to fund additional accounting support in fiscal 25.
Yes.
Is that
Correct.
the accurate thing we
That's
need
the
to do?
motion.
That is the motion. Does
So
anybody?
moved.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so Margaret made the motion and Jen seconded that we move to approve up to $17,190 out of rural aid to fund additional accounting support in fiscal 25. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, there you go. Got that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, why don't we deal with the bus contract?
Okay, and the bus contracts also, oh, look at Kim, she's right on there. So the contract was originally 3 years with two 1-year extensions, and we have been in discussions with the Durham Bus Company. You'll notice that the option to renew for years 4 and 5 would be at the negotiated price of the previous year's amount plus 4%. And we were able to talk with them, and that 4% would be there in the yellow under FY 25-26. It would be $1,999,160, and in 26-27 it would be $2,079,126. And in our conversations, the negotiations went well, and I asked them if we could get a reduction for being such good clients and for such good customers. And so he actually did give us a reduction in the first year from 4 to 3.5, and in the second year from 4 to 3%. I did ask if we could flip flop those because, well, not only the compounding, but also because next year's budget might be tight. And he said he wasn't able to do that because they'd recently had a boiler failure themselves, and he has to cover certain costs. So overall, that's going to be almost a $40,000 savings over 2 years, and we were very happy with that. So what I'm looking for is for the school committee to approve entering into a contract with those terms.
So is this enter like saying, yes, we're taking both of these years?
Yes.
All right.
And I think, Kim, it's good to understand or to remember that there was only one bid for transportation the last cycle. And so because of the situation we're in currently and that fact, we thought it would be best to extend, and Dawn did a nice job negotiating the decrease. So that was why we're making the recommendation to enter into year 4 and 5 at those rates.
I just
one of the
want to clarify that it was a 2-year thing that we were talking about. Not
It
a one.
is.
Yeah.
It is 2 years. And one of the other things that I will say is we also checked with other schools, and going out to rebid the contract, they're finding that there's double-digit increases. And so we felt if we could keep it down, at 4 or below, that we would come out in the best position.
Jen,
So
did you have a question?
Are all the other points in the contract exactly the same as it has been?
Yes.
So nothing has been changed or negotiated or whatever in the contract. This is just of that.
No,
contract.
the one thing that I will mention, Kim, if you could advance it to the 3rd page where it lays out, and in the blue, this was what was negotiated for 22-23. And then, we've just brought those forward. Now you'll see Chesterfield, Goshen, Southampton, Westhampton, Williamsburg, and vocational. So this transportation contract covers all of those expenditures. And one of the things that I want to look at. So this isn't part of the contract. I just am bringing it up because it's included in the contract. One of the things that we need to look at between now and the end of the budget cycle is how these costs are being allocated to each of these schools. Right now, Hampshire Regional is picking up about $990,000 of the $1.9 million that we're spending this year. And we just want to make sure that that is accurate and that the local schools are also have accurate allocations. So we're trying to go into the archives and determine how this was done and just update that. But that's not a function of the contract. That's a function of what we provide to the vendor, and then they invoice accordingly. I just wanted to let you know that's something that's being done.
So the only change in the contract then that we're being asked to approve tonight is to go from a 4% increase down to a 3.5% in year 4, and a 4%, and go from a 4% increase in year 5 down to a 3% increase.
Yes, and to renew for years 4 and 5. So the contract request has to have an affirmative renewal, and that's what you'd be doing. We are renewing at these new rates.
Okay, but everything else about the cut, so the number of buses, all of that has stayed the
Yes,
same.
that's correct.
Right. That was my concern, is that I know how we switched the calendar for this year, the days that we can offset and be different than the high school or any of the other schools, you know what I mean? Like that part of that contract. I just want to make sure that all of that is still the same, and the only change is the decrease in percentage of increase, I guess.
Yes, that is my
That's a good
understanding.
question, Jen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Glad you
mean?
thought of that. Yeah, I'm glad you thought of that.
Okay, so
So
nothing else has changed. Just the only change we're looking at is what Kim is showing on the screen right now.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Okay. Well, if somebody wants to figure out how to make the motion, go ahead.
Yeah, so I move that we extend our contract with Durham School Services for 2 more years at a rate of increase of 3.5% for year 4 and 3% for year 5.
Perfect. Second.
Any further discussion? All in
No.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. And thank you for renegotiating that, Don.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, me too. All right, school choice. Is this our annual vote to be a school of choice?
Yeah, and for my sake, I just wanted to understand the process that has happened over time in Southampton. There's a little difference in everywhere I've been. By statute, you only have to take a vote if you're not going to participate in school choice. And I know, Lisa, you've looked at your numbers and we're going to participate, but just so I understand, you're going to make a recommendation for where the seats are open, and then the school committee is going to weigh in on that, correct?
Right, but my understanding was that was not happening tonight. So
Okay.
So normally what happens, and I don't know if this is correct or not correct based on what you just said, but tonight I was prepared to just, listen whether we were going to accept school of choice students for next year, whether we were going to participate or
Okay.
not, right? And then at the next meeting, because once we just got our census numbers today, and once we go through all those and sort of look at who we have in preschool coming up and who's at home that we don't know about, that we found out about today, how many kids do we think we can accept for school of choice in kindergarten at least? And then look at the rest of the building too. But it looks like we would
Okay.
probably only be looking at kindergarten. But we don't have that number yet of how many spots we would like to accept.
Okay, understood. And just so everybody knows, I have to complete a survey by June 1, so that fits right in with our timeline. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think it used to be there. I think there was a time where we had to take the vote annually to do it. And I think that we got into the habit of taking the vote annually to do it. So I guess, is anybody making a motion to not do it?
Definitely not.
No.
Okay, then, I don't think we have to do any more with that tonight, right?
I'll
Okay.
just say, for the record, we have the highest number of students coming into kindergarten that we've had in a very long time. We already have 48. So we
Really?
usually like to see the number a little lower because we know there are people that did not fill out the census that we sort of don't know about yet that
Mhm.
will show up, in the next 6 months. So that's kind of a high number to start with, but we'll go from there.
Are we losing a kindergarten teacher?
No, we'll still have 4.
Okay.
It's interesting how these bubbles come through.
It is.
COVID, man.
All right. Security upgrades update. Is there anything to report there, Eliza?
Yeah, we have our last training, which would be Tuesday, February 18th during vacation. We have the company coming back in again to go over everything with us again, our passwords, our how to set and deactivate and activate and things like that. Answer a couple questions that we still have, and then we should be good to go after that.
Right.
And to be clear, sorry, Kim, the work that you've done for access to the building, the everybody's all set with that, correct?
Yes, yep. All the
Right.
teachers
Awesome.
are in agreement. Yep.
Fantastic. Great work.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that we need to talk about before our next meeting?
Yes,
What's that, Ms. Scaffotti?
that's just we might have talked about it last time, but I didn't see it in the minutes, and I can't remember. When is the Southampton review of the budget? When does who reviews it? Is it the finance committee? Is it the select board after the school committee? But for example, in Westhampton, the school committee and the finance committee coordinate because the finance committee sits in on those hearings, etc. And
I think John handles this, doesn't he, Margaret? Doesn't he usually
so-
take the lead on this?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Okay, so then we don't need
Because
to talk
because
about
he's
it.
on select board, it's kind of that makes it a little bit easier, but it
Okay.
is done with the principal and school committee, and then it goes to select board and FinCom.
Okay, great.
Right.
So I'll just talk to John about what dates he's thinking of.
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, and then we will have to schedule the public hearing and do the whole advertising 7
Yep.
days ahead and all that stuff. All right. Is there anything else?
No.
All right, then. I guess we're done.
All right. Nice
I
I
job,
can just
standing
adjourn. I
chair.
can just adjourn
To
us,
say I
right?
move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Oh, second.
Okay, good. Everyone, all in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you,
Enjoy your-
everybody.
Stay
Happy
safe.
birthday.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Kim.
Take care.
Enjoy
Happy
your birthday,
birthday.
Vito.